Emma had never imagined that a single morning could change everything. She woke up like any other day, the sunlight spilling across her apartment, the city humming outside. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand, a small, ordinary sound that would mark the start of something extraordinary. The message was simple but devastating. A link to her project. A presentation she had poured months of work into. Now live online, credited to someone else. Her heart stopped. Emma stared at the screen, unable to breathe, as the reality sank in. Her friend, Lena, the one person she had trusted completely, had taken everything. Every late night, every idea sketched on scraps of paper, every sleepless hour spent debugging and refining, all gone. Someone she had laughed with, shared dreams with, confided in, had stolen her work and claimed it as her own. The betrayal hit like a punch to the stomach. Emma sank into her chair, her hands trembling. She felt her mind split in two. Part of her wanted to scream, to run to Lena and demand an explanation, to confront the injustice head-on. Another part, a colder, sharper part, started thinking about revenge. Not reckless revenge, not impulsive, but calculated. If Lena could take this from her without a second thought, maybe it was time Emma learned how to strike back. To regain what had been stolen, she replayed every moment in her head, searching for signs she had missed. Had Lena ever shown envy? Had she been subtly undermining Emma all along? Emma wanted to understand, to make sense of the betrayal. The more she thought, the clearer it became. Lena hadn't just made a mistake, she had planned this. Every compliment, every shared idea, every casual conversation had been a step toward this moment. Lena had been strategic, precise, and heartless. Anger rose in Emma, burning through the shock and disbelief. Her hands clenched into fists. She could feel her pulse in her temples, her vision narrowing to the screen in front of her. The audacity of it, the sheer betrayal, it demanded a response. But what kind of response? Emma's mind raced. She knew that screaming, yelling, or posting a public accusation would feel satisfying for a moment, but wouldn't give her the long-term justice she craved. If she wanted to reclaim her power, she had to be smarter than Lena. Emma spent the morning in a haze, trying to focus on anything other than the betrayal. She poured herself coffee, walked to the window, tried to shake the feeling that her world had shifted on its axis. But everywhere she looked, she saw reminders of Lena. The photos on the wall, the sticky notes on the fridge, the routine they had shared. Each one became a needle, pricking at her pride, reminding her that trust could be broken in a single calculated act. She remembered the moment they had first met. Fresh out of university, Emma had been full of ideas but unsure of herself. Lena had appeared confident, self-assured, like someone who already knew the world was hers for the taking. Thea had clicked instantly. Lena had been encouraging, supportive, always ready with a word of advice or a shared laugh. Emma had trusted her completely, thinking that their friendship was unshakable. And now, that trust lay in ruins. By midday, Emma realized she couldn't escape the thought of revenge. But it wasn't a simple desire, it was a complicated mix of emotions, hurt, anger, disbelief, and a strange creep-in curiosity. What would it feel like to confront Lena? To see the shock in her eyes when Emma revealed that she knew. Could Lena even feel guilt? Or would she simply justify her actions? Like a predator who believed she was entitled to the prize. Emma's mind began to shift into strategy mode. She was going to take action. She needed information. She started gathering data, tracing Lena's movements online, analyzing her social media posts, looking for patterns. Every meeting, every project Lena was involved in, every casual conversation she shared online became a piece of a puzzle. Emma was no longer just a victim. She was becoming a strategist, a player in a game she had been forced to join. The hours passed quickly, though Emma barely noticed. Her apartment grew dark as the sun moved across the sky, but she was consumed by planning. Thinking about every possibility, every angle. She imagined Lena's reactions to different scenarios, testing each in her mind. Could she subtly expose Lena without risking her own reputation? Could she wait for the perfect moment to reclaim what was hers, to make sure Lena felt the consequences of her betrayal fully? The questions consumed her. Even as she plotted, Emma felt a strange pull toward reflection. She remembered the small kindnesses Lena had shown over the years, the lunch she had shared during a difficult week, the encouragement when Emma had doubted herself. Could someone capable of such betrayal also have been genuinely kind? Emma's mind twisted in confusion. The human capacity for contradiction fascinated her, scared her, and fueled her growing obsession with justice. By evening, Emma was exhausted but alert, a paradoxical state of heightened awareness. She realized that Lena had underestimated her. She had assumed Emma would be devastated, distracted, perhaps even paralyzed by anger. But Emma's mind had shifted, sharpened. Betrayal had opened a new perspective, one that Lena had never anticipated. Emma was no longer simply hurt. She was vigilant, aware, and quietly calculating. Dinner came and went. Emma barely touched her food, instead reviewing Lena's past actions in her mind. She recalled subtle moments of manipulation, times when Lena had taken credit for group ideas, moments of charm that masked competition. The betrayal was not isolated. It was part of a pattern. Each recollection added fuel to the fire, but also clarity to her strategy. Emma's anger was focused, honed into a precise tool rather than a wild, destructive force. Late into the night, Emma finally allowed herself a brief rest. Lying on the couch, she felt the weight of betrayal settle into her bones. She knew one thing with absolute certainty: she would not allow Lena to walk away unchallenged. But Emma also knew that revenge was a dangerous path, one that could consume her entirely if she wasn't careful. She had to balance desire with control, anger with patience. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of confrontation and strategy, moments where Lena apologized, moments where Emma revealed the truth, and scenes where Lena faced public humiliation. Each dream was a rehearsal, each scenario a mental exercise preparing her for the inevitable decision she would have to make. When morning arrived, Emma felt different. She was no longer just the person who had been wronged. She was someone new, cautious, calculating, aware of her own power. Betrayal had changed her, awakened something she hadn't known existed. It had given her focus, a mission, and a new understanding of trust, loyalty, and human complexity. Emma stepped out into the city with a renewed sense of purpose. She watched the people around her, noting interactions, observing behaviors, learning from the world as though it were a chessboard. Every glance, every smile, every careless comment was data. Emma knew she had to be patient. Revenge was not a sprint. It was a carefully timed sequence of moves, a test of strategy and endurance. As she walked, she imagined Lena, unaware of the storm, building quietly, methodically. Lena might have believed the theft of Emma's project was a victory, but Emma knew that the game had just begun. Every action Lena took from this point forward would be under Emma's careful watch. Every mistake, every slip, every miscalculation would be noticed. And when the time came, Emma would strike, but only when it mattered most. By midday, Emma had a rough plan forming in her mind. She would gather evidence, track Lena's patterns, and find the perfect moment to reveal the truth. Not in a way that would harm herself, but in a way that would ensure justice was served. She understood that revenge was not about cruelty, was about reclaiming power, taking back what was rightfully hers and ensuring that betrayal did not go unanswered, even as she planned. Emma struggled with conflicting emotions. She didn't want to become like Lena, someone willing to hurt others for personal gain. She wanted her actions to reflect her own integrity and intelligence, not blind rage. The tension between desire for retribution and moral compass made her restless, but it also sharpened her focus. She could feel the anticipation building. the energy of what was to come pulsing through her veins. By evening, Emma was ready to take the first step. Not a confrontation, not a reveal, but a careful observation. She would watch Lena closely, noting habits, weaknesses, and the way she interacted with colleagues. Every detail mattered. Every insight was a tool she could use when the moment was right. Emma felt a strange satisfaction in this meticulous preparation. A sense of control she hadn't had since discovering the betrayal. As night fell, Emma reflected on the day's events. She had been shaken, hurt, and angry, but she had also grown stronger. Betrayal had tested her, pushed her to the edge, and revealed a side of herself she hadn't known existed. It had ignited a fire, a drive for justice and empowerment that could not be ignored. Emma knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead would be challenging, filled with difficult choices and moral questions. She would have to navigate carefully, balancing her desire for revenge with her sense of right and wrong. But for the first time since the betrayal, she felt ready. She was no longer just a victim. She was a strategist, a planner, a person who could take control of her own destiny. Emma spent the next few days watching Lena closely. Every move, every casual comment, every interaction became a piece of the puzzle. She noticed patterns she had missed before. How Lena flinched when someone asked about deadlines. How she repeated ideas she didn't fully understand as if claiming them as her own. How she subtly leaned on colleagues to cover for mistakes. Emma took notes quietly, not to expose immediately, but to understand fully. Revenge required precision, and she refused to act blindly. At home, Emma's mind was a constant storm. She imagined confronting Lena, hearing the excuses, seeing the panic or denial in her eyes. Each scenario played like a movie in her head. She pictured subtle ways to reveal the truth, to reclaim recognition without appearing petty. Part of her wanted dramatic justice, the satisfaction of watching Lena squirm, but another part reminded her that immediate gratification could backfire. Patience was her weapon. She had to wait for the perfect moment. Evenings were the hardest. Emma felt anger, yes, but also a creeping uncertainty. What if revenge changed her? She had always been proud of her integrity, her calm reasoning, her fairness. Could she hurt someone, even someone who betrayed her, without losing herself in the process? The thought kept her awake, turning over every possibility, every risk. Every plan she made required balancing justice with morality. She couldn't allow anger to lead to regret. Emma also wrestled with memories. She remembered Lena's support during tough times, the shared laughter, the comfort of having someone who seemed to care. Betrayal wasn't simple. Lena hadn't been evil from the start. She had been human, complicated, flawed. That thought made Emma pause. Was revenge worth the price if it meant becoming someone she didn't respect? Yet she couldn't deny the pull of justice, the need to reclaim what was hers. She started reaching out subtly, re-establishing connections with colleagues who had witnessed her original work. Without pointing fingers, she shared ideas, documented contributions, and quietly reminded the team of her role in the project. It wasn't revenge, it was preparation. She was planting seeds, building a foundation for when the time came to act. Every interaction was deliberate, every word chosen carefully. She wanted to control the narrative, not destroy someone impulsively. Meanwhile, Lena remained unaware. She moved confidently, unaware that Emma was watching, planning, and learning. That unawareness fueled Emma's anticipation. There was satisfaction in knowing Lena had no idea what was coming, in holding power silently, waiting for the moment to strike. Emma felt a thrill, a mix of tension and focus, sharper than any anger she had experienced before. Emma's thoughts also wandered to what revenge might feel like emotionally. Would it bring closure or hollow victory? She couldn't ignore the possibility that taking action could leave her empty, like a brief high followed by regret. That uncertainty made the planning phase even more important. She couldn't rush it. Precision required calm, patience, and clarity of mind. At work, she began to notice more subtle things. Lena had weaknesses. She hadn't anticipated overconfidence, slight carelessness in documentation, and a tendency to underestimate those around her. Emma stored each detail, recognizing how it could be used strategically. Not to humiliate, not to harm, but to ensure accountability. She imagined ways to correct the record publicly, subtly, without letting personal feelings make her reckless. The struggle wasn't just external, it was internal. Emma's mind shifted constantly between anger and compassion, justice and morality, action and patience. She recognized that this tension was part of the process. Revenge was not a single act. It was a journey, a series of decisions, each with consequences. Every time she imagined confronting Lena, she also imagined herself looking in the mirror afterward. Could she live with the reflection of someone who acted purely out of spite? Could she justify the satisfaction if it came at the cost of her own peace? At night, Emma sat in silence, thinking about all possible outcomes. She played scenarios over and over, imagining Lena's reactions, the reactions of their colleagues, the potential risks. Each possibility sharpened her mind, made her focus deeper. She realized revenge wasn't about anger alone. It was about strategy, patience, and understanding human nature. She had to control her impulses and think like a chess player. As the days passed, Emma began to feel a strange sense of empowerment. The betrayal had forced her to grow in ways she hadn't anticipated. She wasn't the same person who had stared at her phone in shock. She had become alert, strategic, emotionally aware, and patient. She could feel the tension of anticipation, a slow-burning energy that made every decision feel weighty and significant. Emma also began testing herself. She imagined different levels of action, from subtle exposure to more direct confrontation. Each option had consequences she had to weigh carefully. She wasn't just planning revenge. She was planning the ethical and emotional path she would take, ensuring that whatever she did wouldn't consume her entirely. Every choice required consideration, discipline, and restraint. By the end of the week, Emma had a clearer picture of Lena's habits, weaknesses, and the perfect opportunity for action. She understood that revenge could be satisfying, but only if executed with thoughtfulness and control. Anger alone wasn't enough. It needed direction, purpose, and strategy. She could feel herself ready, poised for the moment when patience would meet opportunity. Emma knew the final decision wasn't about hurting Lena. It was about reclaiming herself, restoring balance, and proving that betrayal did not define her. Every step of the plan, every observation, every subtle action was preparing her for a moment of choice, a climactic decision where she could decide whether justice meant action or restraint. The anticipation was almost unbearable, but it was also exhilarating, sharpening her mind, her instincts, and her resolve. She went to bed that night with a sense of purpose, a quiet excitement, and a lingering tension. The struggle had strengthened her, tested her, and prepared her. Emma had learned patience, strategy, and the complexity of human emotion. The next step was approaching, and she knew it would require courage, clarity, and resolve. She was ready to face it, whatever the outcome might be. The fire of betrayal still burned inside her, but it had transformed into something sharper, controlled, and deliberate. Emma had entered the arena of moral and emotional strategy, and she knew that the climax of her journey was on the horizon. Revenge, she realized, wasn't just about acting, it was about understanding, observing, and choosing the moment when action would be both just and meaningful.